Hey, today I want to address cooling issues, and cooling issues is something here at West Coast Classic Cougar we deal with a lot, especially in the summertime. Unfortunately, a lot of people get their advice and make their purchases at the auto parts store or a well-meaning mechanic before they come to us, and they end up with a funky aftermarket fan or electric pusher fans or some god-awful ugly aluminum radiator. All these things, in my opinion, and from my experience, aren't the way to go. I'm a keep it original kind of guy, and today I want to show you how to upgrade your cooling system. And what I'm going to use today is this 69 Cougar. This 351 Windsor 4-barrel came with no air conditioning. So from the factory, it has a 20-inch wide radiator. When I say 20-inch, this is where we're measuring from. In the day, I suppose it did okay. But as time goes on, things change. One thing is, many of these engines have been rebuilt. And when they're rebuilt, oftentimes performance upgrades happen. That ups the temperature. But usually what happens is they're bored out like 30 over. Well, now you have thinner cylinder walls. And this cooling system didn't take thinner cylinder walls into consideration. Another thing we have maybe more now than when this car was made in 1968 or 9 is stop and go traffic. There's plenty of things that affect the temperature. I, for one, in a classic car, don't ever want to worry about my temperature. It just ruins the family outing when I'm watching the temperature gauge and I have to turn on the defroster or heater and apologize to my wife on why on a 98-degree day we need the heater on high. So what I'm going to do to this car is I'm going to put in the wider 24-inch radiator, and I'm going to upgrade the fan. I'm also going to put a shroud on it, and this is pretty easy stuff to do, but I want to make it super easy for you so you know what to order on our website or when you call it in person and why you're spending the money with us. So let's look at the radiator first. So had this car been ordered with a heavy-duty cooling package or air conditioning, it would have got a 24-inch wide radiator from the factory. If this was a big block car, a 390, a 428, it also would have had a 24-inch wide radiator. There's one other radiator that was available only in 67, and it seems like only in the budget units, and that was a 18-inch wide radiator. And not only was it way undersized, you couldn't get a shroud for it. So if you've got a 67 with one of those dinky little radiators in it, pitch it. I don't even care if it's original Ford, pitch it. Now you might put it on the wall in your garage just to look at, but nobody wants it, trust me. So if you can find an original 24-inch wide radiator, you can get them rebuilt for about $400. Well, they're getting kind of hard to find, and really the number one difference between our reproductions made by ACP and the Ford one is this logo. This is the most, I kind of like to see that logo. One thing some of my customers have done is if they already have a 24-inch wide radiator and it's ruined, they will sweat the seam off this and take this tank and place it on their reproduction radiator, so at first glance you have a FOMOCO. That's for the people who are getting really picky. But let's put this reproduction next to this original here. Now what I do is I never promote the 2-core radiator. From the factory, the small block cars would have had 2-core. Some of the big block cars had 3-core, but the price is about the same, 2-core versus 3-core when you're buying reproduction. So why not put the extra row of cooling fins in there? Now this is supposedly, from what ACP tells me, 98% purity in the copper. It's also of brass design, and these are as good or better, they claim, than the originals. And really, we have had fantastic luck. I've tried 3 or 4 brands, and the fit on the others is just a little off, and it really matters because when you put it in, you got cradle mounts on these that go here, and if this measurement is just a little off, you're in trouble. And you guys that have bought the aftermarket inexpensive aluminum radiators know what I mean. You got to fabricate mounts to hang this. But you look at the basic design here, And if you really get nitpicky, you'll see tiny little differences. But at first glance, it looks correct and fits good. So here's the second thing. Here's an original Ford shroud. It was fiberglass. Some people call that horsehair texture. But look how over time it's swelling. If I was just to take my fingers and go like that real quick, I could break that off. These become very brittle. They're impossible to find. Once in a while we'll get an NOS or a used one. But for the most part, we sell these reproductions. And they're plastic, modern plastic, much more flexible. You'll see these originals, they're always broken right here at 12 o'clock. That's because people like to lean on them when they're working on the cars. So we say, let's just go with a reproduction. It's inexpensive, and if it ever breaks, it's easy to fix. Replace. Of course, we'll need our mounting kit, and these are easy to install. Just slide right in here. And then these were put in. Fans are an area where a lot of people go awry. They think that these original fans aren't the greatest. Well, they were designed for this car, and I know they don't look very special or high-tech, but they actually did a pretty good job. This is for a non-air conditioning application. In 1969, on the Cougar, now I don't know why the Mustang didn't, but Cougar, this is what you had got for a 351 Windsor anyway. And clutch fan, the beauty about these is they're horsepower saving, meaning when the thermostat reads that your car is cool, it freewheels, just slowly turns. As it gets hotter, it forces the fluid into the other chamber, and it doesn't completely lock up, but it gets really stiff. You shouldn't ever see any leaking there, and you shouldn't be able to wobble and hear a clunk, clunk, clunk on this. And if you ever get out of your car on a hot day and go to spin it, and it spins easy, that clutch is bad. Now do know that the clutches we carry are correct. 99% of everybody else has the wrong listing when you look up Cougar or Mustang on clutch fans. I don't know where the misinformation got started, but it spread through all the auto parts stores. What we've been selling people lately is the big block fan. We've had these reproduced. We sell them to all the major suppliers. You can get them at NPD or Mustangs Unlimited, CJ Pony Parts. Pretty much everybody sells these. Scott Drake distributes them to a lot of the smaller vendors. But the big block fan was designed for ultimate cooling. Let's think about it. What was the hottest running motor of the 60s and 70s? It was the 428 Super Cobra Jet drag packs for their low gears. It was the 427 side oiler in the GTE. The 390 GT put out a lot of heat. So these are designed to do the utmost in cooling. And what we found, and I was enlightened to the other day, is a lot of the Galaxy guys and truck guys are using these. They cool better than the fans they would have seen on their 61 Galaxies or their 66 Ford pickups. So any Ford engine will benefit from this energy-saving design, and it also runs quieter too. Here's another fan we see in Cougars and Mustangs. This one became popular in about 1970. This came off a 351 Windsor. This was a cost-cutting measure, and it kind of backfired in Ford's lap. The faster they go, the more the blades flatten out. And they don't have to have a clutch. Seems simpler, seems like a good idea. Well, you can't really control what happens here. It's all based on RPM, not temperature. So in my opinion, they're not as efficient as this design. Here's the other problem. And you really need to inspect your fan well. Ford had some lawsuits against them in the day because of these developing cracks and coming apart at high RPMs. So if you do have an original flex type fan, look very closely for even the smallest hairline cracks. That could be an issue. Here's the one I see over and over and over. Come look at this fan. This is your typical auto parts store fan. And you know, they're designed to be lightweight and flatten out at high horsepower to save horsepower. Maybe they're good for the quarter mile, but for stop and go traffic, I don't like these $20 fans. Don't like them all. And look at this, they had to modify their shroud to make it work. So we got a danger here, and we got an inefficient fan, and it's not close enough to the radiator either. Should be a little closer to that. So today we're going to take off all this stuff and start over. Okay, we're going to transition here to what I think is the hardest part of this conversion, and it's really not that hard. These are weird looking brackets, and a lot of people hold them up the car and go, where on earth do these go? If you got a 67, you are going to really scratch your head. Reason being, 67 never used this style of mount, because even in their air-conditioned cars, they used 20-inch. And in their big block cars, they used a radiator that was kind of an oddball. It was kind of halfway in between a 20 and 24 inch, and they used a different cradle mount. So I highly suggest these for you 67 small block owners and big block owners. You won't find too many 67 big block parts cars to get parts off of, so this is kind of what you're stuck with. Okay, now I'm going to show you where they go. As I said before, 6, 8 through 70 is pre-drilled. And I can never remember by looking which one goes where, so I actually got to hold it up there and test fit it. So here we are, pre-drilled, pre-tapped, this being a non-air conditioned car. They've never been used. Now look at here, this is very common. This car's had a tow hook on it at one time. So before you try to get these in place, and it'll go at a little bit of an angle here, we're going to have to tap that and massage it with a vice grips or whatever, because that's our hole and it ain't quite lining up. Okay, looking in there, I can clearly see some threads, but you know, paint and debris and everything. I'm going to run a little tap in there, just so I don't have to force anything. The mounts don't come with hardware, but when I took off the radiator, I can repurpose these. I'm going to repurpose 2 of them to put the upper mount in, and the other 2 I'm going to repurpose to put here. Now you can buy brand new ones off our website, but what the heck? They're here. They got patina. The car has patina. Let's do it. Now, since I have some pretty tight tolerances putting the big block fan in place of a small block fan, see here the big block fan is just a little taller, about a ½ inch or so. Anyway, more than a ½ inch. I'm gonna know that I might have to come back and adjust those, because it's gonna be tight in that shroud. And goes like this. Okay, I had to replace the hoses. I should say hose. The lower hose is the same whether you have 20 or 24 inch wide radiator. This is pertaining to the small block. The upper, you could almost fudge it over, but you know, you don't want to do any of that number on here. I chose to get our Cougars looking hoses. These reproduction ink marts aren't known for their staying power, so try not to rub them, because once you get grease on them, then you're going to put some solvent on it, and then you're going to go, I paid extra money to get nothing. I don't think these original type clamps are better, but I like the look. And every time I work on this car, and I'm going to work on this car a little bit, at every turn, I'm trying to make it look a little more original. Get rid of some of this wonky homeowner stuff. Now, let's look at this overflow tank. If you're in the state of California, they require this. They don't want one drip of coolant making it on the ground. I think that's ugly. I'm going to get it out of here. And because I have such an increased capacity on my radiator, I'm just going to make sure that my coolant level stays lower and it doesn't belch out. That's my personal. Now, really, the best way to do it is to have one of these. And maybe you have a better idea to hide something than to have this thing front and center. I chose to go with an original upper mount. Really, the reproductions are, most people are never going to notice. The stamping is a little crisper on the originals, and whenever possible, I spend the extra couple bucks and go original. The rubbers fit into these real well. These are the reproduction rubber pieces. And there's an alignment tab there. And let's go like this. There we go. You'll need a couple of these little U-nuts. The reproductions don't come with them, so they're on our website as well. And then, looky here, they make it so easy for you. There's the holes right there. You don't have to take anything apart. One thing, as Andrew put it, that's mildly annoying is these come in a gloss black. So the factory, of course, did them in semi-gloss engine paint. So you might scuff and fog this with semi-gloss paint if you want a really true color on here like the factory would have had it. No fuss, no muss. Let's see if our two recycled bolts line up like we thought they would. Hey, look at that. Okay, it's real important you get this right. Front means front of the car. So we're going to lay this over here. And keep in mind, when you're ordering on our website, even though you might be putting in a small block, if you're putting a big block fan in its place, you got to have the big block clutch. The small block has different bolt spacing, so that'll throw you off. Be careful on that. And of course, you want to get the right hardware from us with the captured washers and the right thread pitch, and it's important they're not too deep. So we have these listed right there with the fan clutches. Notice that I'm lying the shroud here, but I'm not bolting it in yet. And that's important. You got to place your fan in there first because it would be impossible to reach in that shroud and around to the bolt. So here we go. Make sure the little bushing is in here. This is a multi-fit part, and so it requires this little bushing to make it snug. Hopefully this hasn't bumped out of index, so your holes will be right where you left them when you took off the other fan. Notice the spacer does not go back on it. Now your goal is to get these bolts just on one or two threads and stop, because you'll have to fish the other bolts in to get it started. It's kind of cumbersome, to be honest with you. The factory ones, there was no slots in here. The clutch was assembled with the bolts, which makes it easier to install actually. And before you get too far, you gotta get going on the one next door. Okay, I really wanted to do this install without elongating the holes on the radiator itself. I had a little hiccup with the motor mounts. I did find out I have a 68 302 to 70 small block motor mount on this side and the original 67 289 / convertible one on this side. I haven't changed them yet, I will, but you know what made all the difference in getting my radiator positioned right was the original mounts changed the elevation just enough to where the radiator set down better and set more level, and that's what did it. We didn't have to elongate any holes. This is actually a pretty easy install. I don't think this is one you need to take to your mechanic. Basic hand tools, a little bit messy, you know, draining the antifreeze, but with just making an order on our website with these few parts and very little time in the driveway, a couple hours, your cooling problems are going to be over for most of you. Now, if you have a plugged up block or something else, we're going to get into that in another day. So thanks for watching. Hope this helps.